Hello, friends. Welcome to another edition of What's Going On with Nate Brown Jr. and the crew. And this is your co host, Ryan Verneuille, here for the evening, or I should say, for the morning, with the legend himself, Greg Vaughn. Greg out in Las Vegas. We're about to cover some MLB news. There's spring training to talk about. The Padres are for sale, and it could be at a record breaking number. And of course, the NBA is in full effect. So, well, where to begin, Greg? First off, how are you today amidst this day of just insane news within our country?
Hey man, like I said, I'm good, Ryan. How are you, man? Good to see you. Always good. I look forward to this weekly, our conversations, even though we talk a lot on the phone. But yeah, man, it just seems like every day you wake up, man, what's next? You know what I mean? This last year has been crazy. What is next? Every single day, it's it does feel like a TV show. You know what I mean? Every day it's like reality TV. What's going to happen today? So
It does feel
yeah,
like
man,
that.
it's sad. It's sad. The definition of war means people will die, right? And I'm a parent, you're a parent, so we have to think about that. Yeah, but like you said, we have sports to try to ease some of that pain and try to bring people together, right? Because we're in a time where you know we have enough divide. We got to try to bring people together. So hopefully this show does that, and it's always good to see it.
It's always good to see you, Greg. And yes, we provide that distraction that the government also wants us to provide. They don't want us to pay attention to what's going on outside the walls of the NBA and the MLB. I mean, it sounds like we really have much control, but like you said, war is horrible. And especially the war that they have now. It's not the war that, I mean, first off, Greg, your generation's pretty detached from war. Our generation, my generation's even more detached. So I can't even wrap my head around being in a war state of mind trying to hurt other people like that. It's just a tough thing to kind of wrap your head around and to wake up to today's news. And like you said, knowing that there's going to be young kids that are sent off to fight so that we can talk sports feels slightly uncomfortable. But hey, we're here to provide that distraction for the government.
Life goes on. The show must go on. But I say that with all due respect to there are going to be human lives that are lost, and that's sad, right? So, and we're talking about young lives. I know they signed up for it, but I they signed up for a lot of things that aren't going on right now. They didn't. I don't think they signed up for our democracy to be ended. When they signed up, they're fighting for our freedom and our democracy, and I think we need to do a better job at home of
One
keeping that.
last closing
So,
thought on
with that being
politics.
said,
Like you said, everybody signed up
let's
for
get
it. I
into
want to
some
see how many
sports,
people
man.
sign up for this. We saw how
And
quick
sorry,
people
sorry
were
for the.
to try to send their neighbors back to South America or wherever country they thought they could be from. Let's see how quick somebody signs up to defend freedom. Ironic, the whole thing, right? But that being said, yes, back to the good stuff. And Greg, your San Diego Padres, in which you were crushing home runs for back in the day, is for sale. And when I saw the owner, who was the owner, the gentleman that passed away recently? Seiler. And he seemed to really care about the Padres, invested a ton of money into a
Seiler,
roster, brought
Tom
in
Seiler.
Fernando Tatis, or I guess they drafted Fernando Tatis, but Juan Soto, Danny Machado. Oh, they did. Okay. Okay. So
Well, they got
well,
him.
they
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 got him in
you
the
know made
trade
some
from
real
Kansas
money moves. I
City.
remember back
They
in the
got him
day
in the trade.
how pissed off
Yeah,
as a
they got a
fan I
trade for.
was to see you even get moved. It seemed like the Padres weren't spending on big free agents. They had this owner that was coming in and spending money. I mean, now the future is being moved into the hands of new owners. And what are your thoughts on this in general? Who are some of the owners out there that you'd like to see take over the San Diego Padres, Greg?
I really don't know because you know what what's funny now, you know when you're talking about ownership groups, I don't think you're talking about families anymore. You talk about BlackRock, you talk about corporations, right? You talk about humongous boards. So I don't know who would be a good fit. I think whoever the owner is or whoever does buy the team, hopefully they have good baseball people around them, right? And they continue to put put money and make good business decisions. So, hopefully that city, I have well, 3 teams that I play for that have never won a World Series, but some of the best people and my friendships and the organization, if one of them is San Diego, and that city deserves to win a championship. And I think with Mr. Sadler, when he was alive, he was fighting tooth and nail for that. So I think uh, I don't know because I just don't see the family aspect of it now. I see hedge fund guys, I see tech guys, and a lot of them like to be involved. So hopefully, they're whoever does buy it is smart
Well,
enough
there's one
to
group that is catching
bring
news
in good
headlines,
baseball
and that
people
is
and
an
help that city
ownership
win
group
a championship.
headlined by Drew Brees and Warriors owner Joe Lacob, who, as we know, was behind one of the greatest turnarounds ever. So, I mean, what do you think it means if a guy like Joe Lacob is part of an ownership group? Is it going to make that much of a difference, you think, over in San Diego?
Oh, I think the Sadler family, the Sadler family has done a tremendous job. You know what I mean? They have taken and they pumped finances into, like you said, into that roster. So I think, with that being said, I just think they have to, whoever it is, I think it'd be a good choice. I guess I think he's the right guy. But then, how involved does Drew Brees want to be? You know what I mean? Is
Well,
he
that's a good
gonna
point. I guess that
be
once
making
again, I
baseball
feel like these guys
decisions?
have their
I don't
money
know.
backing some of these different, ownership groups. I'm not sure how hands on they'd be, but Joe Lacob was a great basketballer. I mean, the guy's got 5 rings.
Yeah. He does, and I think he's smart enough to put. I think you're right. Drew Brees would probably just be a partner, but look here in Vegas. Look at Tom Brady. They're talking about making. He was in on a coach's decision. He was in on who they're going to draft a quarterback. He was in on not taking Shador. He was in on a lot of decisions, right? So I think, with that being said, uh, hopefully these guys, are gonna, like I said, bring some baseball guys behind them, and bring
I
that
would think
city a
so too, just with
championship. But
that
I
track
do
record
think
of
that is an
success.
order that
And you
would
mentioned Brady being
bring some
hands on. That's because
stability
he's
to the
hands on with a
organization.
football team. I would hope that Tom Brady's hands on with a football team. The guy knows what he's doing. I'm not saying that Drew Brees doesn't, but I mean, I don't know how much baseball Drew Brees is out there watching to be able to make any types of internal decision making. But he still is an athlete, and I still prefer him over some of these other owners that you see out there. So that being said, looking at before we get to, I know people want to hear about the New York Yankees, the New York Mets, and a little bit more about some East Coast spring training. But what are your thoughts on this year's San Diego Padres? That rivalry with the Dodgers, it just gets more and more fierce each year. Do you think that that rivalry is going to drag over into this year and we're going to see some great matchups?
No, I do. I think it's always going to come down to the Padres and the Dodgers. I think it's a tremendous rivalry. It's an hour drive down the freeway. You know what I mean? So it's it's not a train ride away like you have in the Mets series and the Yankee series, but it is. There's two organizations that don't like each other. Uh, I think they have respect for one another, but it's just one of those things that's good for baseball. And like I said, man, if you come out of the West, you're probably, if whoever wins the West is, they're probably gonna, win the World Series or have a good shot to win the World Series, right? Because now you throw Arizona in there also. You know what I mean? Arizona's not going away. So it's just one of those things where the Dodgers have 10 starting pitchers, and whoever's not pitching is going to shorten the game in relief. And I just think, it's good for baseball. And I'm, it's just going to be frustrating because is there going to be a work stoppage? We don't know, and when it comes, for how long. So
That's a
I
good
think
point.
all these teams are
That
just
is what
trying to
people are
stack
waiting
their
on.
chips and
Especially, we'll get into this
let
later.
them
Why
fall where
I'm
they
a
fall.
little bit happy, and I'm going to flip flop a bit, but I like what we're seeing in New York on both these teams. But the San Diego Padres this year, it's a formidable squad, like you said, and that whole division you really can't count out. But to me, it's the best rivalry in baseball right now. active rivalry, the way that the fans mistreat each other. It's just such a wild time. I could imagine going to a San Diego Padres Dodgers game. So many behind the scenes highlights that emerge. Now, Fernando Tatis Jr., I thought at one point was going to maybe be the best outfielder in baseball, barring maybe Shohei Ohtani and, of course, Aaron Judge. I mean, what do you think about Tatis's development and what's his ceiling at this point?
Well, I still think he's one of the most talented guys in the game of baseball. I think, from a talent level, sky's the limit. Uh, when you hit a certain age, you start to mature too. And I think, you know, the Padres are hoping he's at that age that of maturity where baseball just isn't fun, but it's really important. And and also health. He has to stay healthy. If you his track record, he's had some injuries. He's just not been hurt. He's had injuries. When you have injuries, it's tough to play. So I think they hindered him a little bit. But like I said, I mean, he is when you talk about the MVP, he always has to be mentioned in that conversation because he's that good. And you just it could be that year, it could be this year. Who knows? But he can carry a team on his back. So uh, I think San Diego has a lot to
I would
look
think
forward
so
to
too.
with
And
Tatis,
this
and
could be the year that
Tatis,
he
like I
takes it
said,
up to the next
probably
level.
going to be in the
But
Hall of Fame
talent
one day if
wise,
he
there's
can
not
stay
many
on the
guys
field.
better that I've ever seen. We've got Greg Vaughn in studio. This is what's going on. Nate was out and about at the CIAA, moving and grooving down there, interviewing a bunch of people. He's got some great interview clips that'll be up on our YouTube channel. So go to our YouTube and subscribe. We'll be back soon. So don't go anywhere right here on Fox Sports Rochester. And enough talking about a future New York Yankee. And of course, I'm referring to Fernando Tatis. And let's talk about the New York Yankees of today, right here on What's Going On. Greg Vaughn in studio, probably here to shut me down as always. I'm hyped. I don't got the Yankees hat on today, Greg, but it doesn't mean I'm not as enthusiastic as I was last week. And of course, this is Ryan Verneuille. Forgot to introduce myself. If you're just meeting me for the first time, yes, I'm a diehard fan of the New York Yankees. I'm going to put my bias to the side. When I look at the starting rotation, Greg, I do feel like it's the best in baseball. Yeah, I said it. And I give Cashman a whole lot of grief for not making these big giant signings. But when you look at guys like Spencer Jones and Cam Schlittler, it makes me feel a little bit more relieved because maybe he did know that he was stacking the chips and he was raising the farm right. It's feeling good to see Spencer Jones change his batting stance and crank home runs out the park, looking like Shohei Ohtani. Greg, have you been paying attention to the New York Yankees?
I think the Yankees do have a quality staff, but you know, living out west, you can't forget about the Dodgers right now. They probably have 8 starting. The rotation is probably runs 8 deep. You know what I mean? So I think the Yankees have a pretty good staff. The Dodgers, I think have the best staff in baseball. But it should be interesting. The Yankees. I think if everyone stays healthy, they're going to be there like they always are. I think the Red Sox are going to be better. I think you can't forget about Toronto right now. Toronto is is going to be legit. I mean, like I said, the East is going to be tough too, and you always have Boston. So, with that being said, I think that it's going to come down to who can stay the healthiest and who can get off to that nice start, right? Who can get off to the hot start coming out of spring training and keep it rolling.
Well, you're right. That's true. Injuries are going to take its toll, like always. And minus injuries, I just look at that Yankees starting rotation. I haven't been this confident. I've been talking this much smack about our pitchers going into the season in a very long time, Greg. Just to look at the names that we've got here. We're starting it out with obviously Garrett Cole, who I think is going to be healthy. It looks like things are going well for him. We've got Cam Schlittler, who proved himself against the Red Sox. I was at the game, Greg. I saw it in person, that wild card game. The man is a beast. Carlos Rodon, Ryan Weathers, who we just added. And if you know, Weathers has been good on the Marlins. He has his moments. Of course, we have Clark Schmidt and Carlos Rodon. So I'm sorry. I know that the Dodgers have a lot of guys. Yamamoto is just such an animal. I really love me some Yamamoto. But yeah, I've got some faith in the young Yankees. Now, I got to ask you, Greg, Spencer Jones, it looks like the Yankees are kind of backlogged with outfielders. In spring training, we've got Jason Dominguez playing great. We've got Spencer Jones playing great. And Yankees diehards and really MLB fans don't understand why they haven't brought Spencer Jones up to Major League Baseball yet. Is there anything more that this guy can do to prove that he deserves a roster spot? And if not, why do you think that they should keep him even longer in AAA?
Well, like I said, I just think the Yankees do a good job of they got baseball people around. So usually when they make a move, it's warranted, right? I think as much heat as Cashman gets, he knows what he's doing. Tim Nearing's up there. They have baseball people. And I think, they want to bring this kid up, not to bring him up and down. When he comes up, they want him to stay, right? So, and you can say the same thing about the number one prospect in baseball, and that in Pittsburgh, that outfielder, the guy that they have. I mean, first game he hit 3 home runs. You know what I mean? The kid's 19 years old. So, it's just one of those things. You don't want to bring him up and send him back down. When you bring up a kid, you want him to be able to stay up. So, I think with that being said, I think when his time is ready, and also you have some guys out there. What are you going to do? You want them to split time, or do you want them to play every day? It just depends on the need, right? I think young players, you know, it, it it hurts them not to be able to play every day. You have to be able to run them out there every day so you can see what they have, and because it's hard to sit on that bench and be ready, when you're not accustomed to playing every day. So I just think the need has to be right. He has to be in a good mind frame, and I think the open communication between, the manager, the front office, to the kid of what they expect from him, and see if he can handle it.
I just judging by spring training, it looks like he is, but you are an actual baseball legend here. So from your professional opinion, how much different is spring training? You hear that spring training doesn't really matter. Doesn't matter how well a team does or how well somebody hits. Judging by some of these blowouts, do you think that these guys are ready? Or I mean, how different is spring training from the real thing?
Well, I think it's different if for a young player. A young player is trying to earn a spot, so he's coming out, guns blazing. Whereas a guy that knows he's on the roster, he's not trying to get ready day one. He's trying to roll in and work on his craft and you know fine tune some things and get ready for when that season starts at in early April, so or late March. So I think when you have different types of players and where they're at in their career. Spring training can be big on a fringe guy, and he comes in there, he lights out. Now he's earned a spot, right? And you see it all the time with pitchers. It's just one of those things, man, where if you're young, hey, spring training is very important. Not just for the organization, but for yourself to prove and feel like you belong there, right? So I think if you look at a vet that has 5 or 6, 7, 8, 9 years, and he doesn't have to make a team, and he has guaranteed contract. He's working on his craft, trying to be ready. When that bell rings.
It's like you said, and that makes total sense. So it's good that our young guys on the Yankees are shining. So let's move over to the New York Mets since we are here in Rochester. I know it probably pains you to talk so much New York sports, Greg, but there are some Mets fans, sadly, like Nate, that are listening. And a lot of Mets are very hyped. They were complaining nonstop. We saw how Nate took it when Pete Alonso went to Baltimore, when Edwin Diaz went to seal the deal and make the Dodgers obviously odds on World Series favorites. But the Mets have also made some pretty sweet moves. Signing Bo Bichette for 3 years, to me, was an amazing move. Trading for Freddie Peralta, although at the expense of two great young talents, it looks like your Brewers are very hyped about. Adding Luis Robert Jr., Jorge Polanco. Where do you see the Mets finishing this year? And what are your thoughts on these new additions?
Well, I think the Mets got a whole lot athletic. They improved, their athleticism a whole lot by every player you just mentioned, right? Even from Peralta, being a pitcher. He's a great fielder and he's a great athlete. But, the kid you can put in center field, Polanco, switch hitter that can play second base, play all over the place, third base, second base, first base. Uh,
That's where they're putting him.
Bichette, yeah. Bichette, you just took a shortstop and you moved him to third base. Just like Manny Machado, right? Moving from Cal Ripken. So you take it, Jackson Merle moving this to center field. It's shortstops are athletes. So you just got now it just doesn't. help you defensively, but offensively now you don't have to be rely on a 3-run home run. Now you got guys that can run. You know what I mean? You can get back to National League Baseball, trying to manufacture runs, going first to third, scoring on a base hit. You don't need 3 hits to score 1 run, right? I think I think the Mets, they've done a lot of things to improve their team. And like I said, for the Mets, it always comes down to pitching, though, man. For them, they got to be able to get guys out. Now you have to be able to close the game, which you didn't have to worry about for the last few years with that guy. You know what I mean? Now you got to find someone that's capable of taking over his role. So, I still think they have some holes to fill, and they have to, you know, hopefully, find guys to fill some big parts, big
And
holes.
Nolan
Excuse me.
McLean, I mean, a lot of pressure on a rookie. Technically, Nolan McLean is still going to be a rookie, and he's the odds-on favorite for rookie of the year. Sean Manaea, I mean, Kode Senga, who we know is, like you said, the rotation looks a little bit iffy. But if you're a guy like Juan Soto, how much more excited are you to be coming out and playing this year? He looked a little disheartened last year, let's be honest. But now they made some additions. I guess they removed what they were considering to be locker room cancer. People were fighting behind the scenes. So if you're Juan Soto, how much does that affect you? Or do you think a guy like that is going to go out there and give you the same output regardless?
Well, I think hopefully he's probably a little bit more excited right now because last year is history. He finished strong, but that first half was painful to him. He's never experienced anything like it. So I think he's going to come out and basically you know, be ready on game one, so he can have that monster year. He wants to be MVP too. He wants to prove to people that he is worthy of that contract. And, he, and, hopefully, he has a little bit more spunk, because he's a great kid. You know what I mean? And he's a great talent. But, they want to see that shuffle from day one. They don't want to wait till All Star break to see the shuffle again.
Yeah, we don't want to wait until. But let me tell you, I do miss that Soto shuffle. And once again, coming from me, it might mean a little bit more, but I fear for what the National League is in for. I do believe that Soto will take MVP over Otani this year, and that's a bold statement. I know he's going to be pitching and hitting, but I just feel like Soto is going to be despicable this year. And by despicable, I mean he's going to be shuffling a little bit more than normal. You're listening to what's going on. Greg Vaughn is in studio. Ryan Verneuille, myself, I'm in studio. And unfortunately, Nate is not, but that's okay. Go to our YouTube channel for more Nate Brown and all episodes and all old content. Fox Sports Radio, WGO.com. Stay listening right here to Fox Sports Rochester. You will not regret it. We're coming back soon with New York Knicks talk and a whole bunch of other great NBA stuff. I watched that Thunder versus the Nuggets game. And let me tell you, it was spectacular. We're going to get into it. Nobody go anywhere. This is what's going on. And we shall be back. Hello, friends. We are back. And 2 nights ago, what a matchup it was. I sat there, Greg, and I watched Nikola Jokic take on SGA. And every time I watch SGA and those Oklahoma City Thunder, I get so upset and so angry. I explained to my sons as we watched that game, Greg, I said SGA, he could have been a Clipper. I cannot watch that Thunder team without feeling such misery as a Los Angeles Clippers fan. But I'll tell you, Jokic made it a little bit easier. What an animal, Greg. I got to say, we talk about how soft basketball is. I feel like Jokic, as much finesse as he has, and as smooth as he is, and as great a playmaker as he is, I feel like he could hold up his style of play back in the 90s. He does not take any crap from anybody, and I love it.
No, you know what? Hey, he's the truth. You know what I mean? He's out there to play basketball. You see him. He's playing basketball. He doesn't care about any of the other stuff. He's not. You know. He is who he is, right? He's playing for the name on the front, and with his skill set, he has 3 MVPs, probably maybe his fourth coming up. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things that he's incredible. And you know what? And if you have your best player, sort of like you just said, SGA for Oklahoma City, when your best players lead like they lead, you're in a good situation, right? That's you have your rebar and your foundation for a while to come. You know what I mean? Until he doesn't want to play anymore, until it's not fun for him. But the Joker, man, like I said, you know what you're getting every single night, and it's amazing. And you look at him, and you don't. He doesn't get rest days. He doesn't do this day. If he's only time he doesn't play is if he's hurt. He's on that court every single night, 99% of the game, and doing his thing. Right?
That's the thing. He just goes so hard. And for such a big guy, it's just refreshing to see a guy that big that might look like he's kind of softer just take it to the paint the way that he does and put in so much effort every play. And especially in a league that doesn't seem to try a lot of the time. Well, they were playing some defense last night. At least, well, maybe not, old school defense, but at least more than usual. A big game like that when it actually counts. But it makes you wonder because, like you said, he's won 3 MVPs. But SGA is probably right there as well. So to you, who is the best player in the NBA as of right now today? Would you consider to be Jokic and Edwards, Steph Curry, or of course SGA? Whose side are you on, Mr. Vaughn?
Right now, I would say the best player in the league is Joker with Wimby right behind him. Also, and you
Mm,
also have, like you said, SGA. I think it's 1A, B, and C. Right? I think they're all you know, right there at the top. I think either one of them. The thing with Ant is I just think he misses too many games and there's too much other stuff that comes with it. You know what I mean?
yeah.
He Joker, like I said, he fills the stat sheet. SGA fills the stat sheet. Wimby fills the stat sheet. You know what I mean? And if uh if they can ever get their center in Oklahoma City to play like Wimby a little bit, I mean, because Chet is 7'2" too. Wimby 7'5", he's 7'2". If he ever starts playing like Wimby, watch out because no one's going to beat uh, Oklahoma City.
That's a really good point. Holmgren, he really is the X factor for the Oklahoma
He
City
is.
Thunder.
He is. If he starts playing like a third of what Wimby gives you,
Yeah.
I mean, who can beat him?
You're absolutely right. And I say this because I guess I'm a little bit more entrenched into the NBA culture behind the scenes. I just bought NBA 2K26. I haven't played an NBA video game in over 10 years, Greg. And I got it for my sons. I bought them the new Nintendo game, whatever. And it has different eras. They have the Magic Bird era, the Jordan era, they have the Kobe era, the LeBron era, and finally the Steph era. And I just looking back to think, wow, I guess that people really will consider the Steph era. Would you consider this the Jokic era, or what more must he do? I guess he needs how many more championships until you consider a guy that has 3 MVPs for him to get his own era amidst where he's arguably the best over the past 4 years.
And I don't think he even cares. He doesn't give a rat's ass if they think if he has his own air or not, right? I think
Certainly
he
true.
just wants to win as many championships as he can and go off and go back home and do his thing. Get on his ponies and you know have a good time and be with his family. I really don't think he cares if he has an heir. I think you know you have to talk about the Splash Brothers because they almost transformed the way basketball is played now, right? So Steph has an heir because everybody is shooting threes. As stat guys say, we got to get up 45 threes a game. I mean, what if you miss all 45? I don't understand it, but I guess you know everyone doesn't have a Steph Curry on their team, right? So if you have Steph Curry, yeah, I would say so. You know, the Joker, because you have to double them. They can shoot threes, but I just think Steph transformed the game. You have your Michael, you have your Kobe, Shaq. When you had a Shaq, I mean, those are generational talents, man. I mean, the game, they had to change the way they played to stop certain people, and that's what the game is going to be for Wimby too. I mean, he's going to be one of those guys.
So the
To see,
Wemby era is the next era.
to see how athletic and the things he can do at 7'5".
And
You know
that's the
that
thing, though. That's a very good point. Now they call it the Steph era. I imagine because, like you said, he changed the way that people play the game. Everybody's taking threes like never before. But if you think about it, Jokic has also changed the game, not for the average person that goes onto a basketball court and just starts hooking up threes, but for big men. There's so many more big men with that type of skill set that Jokic has that are influenced by Jokic. some of the plays that he runs, he's changing the way that offensive schematics are drawn out if you've got a passing big man like that. So
Yeah, but
I
you know
agree
what?
with what you're saying, but
Yeah, but you know what? But there's not that many that can pass like that. You know what I mean? There's so many. There's so few. You had Chris Webber, you had Vlade Divac, you had Demarcus Cousins was a great passer also. You know what I mean? You have
yeah,
you have guys that can pass, but like I said, if you need a three, he'll hit a three. But the thing about Joker, he says, I will bang with you. I will get down on the block, and that's where he's going to do most of his work. But if you need a three, he'll take a three, but he's going to get you in foul trouble. And like I said, if Embiid ever played like that and quit shooting all them goddamn threes, if Embiid played like Joker, Philadelphia would be who we're talking about also.
it's a
But
good
he
point.
he helps you out. He helps you out by shooting all these goddamn threes, and you know, not being able to post, not being on the floor. It's hard if you can't play.
I just feel so bad watching MB because you know those knees and you know those feet got to be hurting. Constant nagging injuries since the beginning of his career. It felt like forever. Was it 2 seasons that he had to sit out before he could even play? Somehow Jokic just manages to stay healthy as hard as he goes, as much weight as there is. I mean, first off, the only thing I feel worse for than his knees is his ponies. That in itself has to be animal abuse. But the amount of weight on that man's knees and for him to just go as hard as he does, incredible. But you're absolutely right. If Embiid could just stop taking as many threes and play more like Jokic, Philadelphia, especially, imagine if Jokic had Tyrese Maxey over there. My
Well,
God, would it
yeah, and the other kid too, the other
Edgecombe?
guard. I
Edgecombe
mean,
is
yeah,
nice.
yeah, they have pieces, but I mean, my biggest guy out there shooting threes with me, man. I need you down on the block because when you're down there, they got to double you. And now we're open. You know what I mean? You know,
Yeah.
it's nice for you. It's nice for a big to be able to shoot a three, but man, if you're going to require two or three, double teams every time you touch the rock, someone's going to be open.
That's right. And Tyrese Maxey, officially
Joy to
as of the
watch
other night,
too. He's a joy to watch. He
he
plays
is a joy to
basketball
watch.
like he loves it. He plays it like, and he plays hard and he posts every single night. And he's the leader of that team. That's his team. It's not Embiid's anymore. That's Maxey's team.
Absolutely. And now he holds the record for 3-pointers made in a 76ers jersey. He just surpassed Allen Iverson. So big shout out to Tyrese Maxey. AI, as a short person growing up, man, that was my favorite guy to watch. And Maxey out there at 6'2", grabbing the bull by the horns, if you will, or the bulls by the horns. Just an incredible player, so much effort. And like you said, it is indeed his team. So we're getting closer to the playoffs, Greg. If you had to make a prediction right now for MVP, today is March 1st. We're no leap year, right? We're going right to March 1st. So, who would you say is the NBA MVP as of right now?
Well, the Joker missed a month, right?
What is it? 65 games. You know, I have to have 65 games to qualify for MVP.
Yeah, he can't miss anymore.
Wow.
Because he had knee surgery, right? And he had so when he was out with his knee, I don't know, man. Like Jaylen Brown, man. Jaylen Brown is playing his ass off. Jaylen Brown is playing his ass off. Jaylen Brown has to get some love, get some flowers for MVP. And I think it was good for him. Still line from Matthew Chachuk. He's not the bridesmaid anymore. He's the bride. He's shown he could be the bride, right? So I think you know, JT. I think Wimby. I think the Joker at this level still. I think it's gonna, and SGA has been out for how long? I think he's always in the picture, but I think those three guys.
There's one guy that we haven't spoken about yet, and we're going to talk about him. I like
Oh,
that you
you know
brought
what?
up
You know
Brown.
what though? Your boy Donovan Mitchell too over there in Cleveland.
Oh man, there's a few teams that we have to go over, and I know that New York Knicks fans want us to talk about the New York Knicks, but that's the last team I want to talk about when there's the Detroit Pistons and the Cleveland Cavaliers
Oh,
and the
Kate
Boston
Cunningham. Kate
Celtics.
Cunningham.
That's what I'm
Kate
saying. We
Cunningham.
got to talk about how can we forget about Kate Cunningham. So we're going to go to a quick break, come back, and talk more about the NBA East because the East is finally looking beast. Normally it's the West just laying the smackdown, but I've got a good feeling about the East this year in the playoffs. Greg Vaughn, Ryan Verneuille in studio, and this is what's going on. We'll be back soon. Fox Sports Rochester in the building. We'll be back. You're tuned into What's Going On, Ryan Verneuille and MLB legend Greg Vaughn here on Fox Sports Rochester. Greg, I must ask you, as a fellow father and as a fellow parent, is it child abuse to make my children Clippers fans? I used to think the same thing when I see Mets fans, Greg. I said, how do you make your kids become Mets fans when you're living in New York and the Yankees are here? It's actual child abuse to make your kids go to Citi Field instead of Yankee Stadium. How far off am I right now? What do you think? Should I maybe pause on this before I brainwash my kids into being Clippers fans the way I've brainwashed them into being Yankees fans?
Well, I would only say no because I think Ty Lue's a great coach. I think Bomber he does a great job as ownership. They just have to quit getting guys on the back end. They need to get some guys on the front end of their careers, right? I think if they get guys on the front end of the career, I think they'll be like they'll be that team. But they're catching them in the twilight a little bit, just as like Kawhi's finally, Kawhi's playing his ass off this year. It's just one of those things where the Clippers are the Clippers. You know what I mean?
You said it right there, man. It doesn't matter how good they are. It doesn't matter. It seems like the Clippers are the Clippers. And it was all in good fun. And it was funny when it was me making that decision. But when I'm making that decision for my kids and I'm explaining to them the history of the Clippers, the Donald Sterlings, the disappointments, the year after year of
well,
being let down.
that's where you should stop. That's where you should stop. As soon as you start hearing the history that you're explaining, you should be like, I can't do this to him. I
That's
can't do
kind
it
of it,
to
man.
him.
I kind of actually feel that way. But then again, I feel like what's worse, having your kids see you love something and then choose another team. I almost be like, no, kid, you're coming down with me. We're all sinking in the ship together. We're getting in that Clipper ship and we're all sinking together. Because the thought of them being Knicks fans is even worse than the thought of them becoming Clippers fans. I know we have to talk about the East, Greg, but I just had to get that out there.
There you go. There you go. And we got to give Kate Cunningham his flowers too. He's another guy who could be MVP when it's all said and done.
Oh
That
my God.
Detroit
What an
That
improvement.
Detroit basketball, yeah, hey, I love the way they play. And how about the Twins too? Amir Tom, I mean,
Yes.
dude, you talking about total package? Them kids can do it all, right? That I mean, they're just as exciting on defense as they are on offense. They shut down at an early age. They hopefully all the AAU kids are watching them kids play because they shutting grown ass men down, and this being their second year in the league, right? So
Yep.
I think Detroit has all the pieces, and they have a great coach too. They got a great guy leading them, and Detroit, they bring that bruising type of basketball to you, and they're not scared of a fight either.
They're really not clearly. In fact, they're encouraging each other to get out there and fight. I really like this year's Pistons team. It is slightly reminiscent of course, the bad boy Pistons of old. But like you said earlier, the Jalen Brown led Celtics, it looks like he's the big girl at the dance now, man. I forgot the reference that you made, but I thought there wouldn't be a chance that without Jason Tatum, that the Celtics would be this well-oiled machine. And I know it was against the Nets, but that's exactly what it is. A well-oiled three-point shooting machine with Peyton Pritchard stepping up and other guys over there kind of coming into their own. The Celtics are looking scary. So out in the East, we've got not just them, but also, and this is why I started my gripe about the Clippers, but we just gave James Harden to the Cavs, and he seems to be the secret sauce that the Cavs needed. He's coming out, what is he averaging? 18 points a game, 8 assists, 8 rebounds, something crazy. But it's exactly what the Cavs needed, that veteran presence. And I know that he becomes, I guess you'd say, James Harden come playoff time. But do you fear the Cleveland Cavaliers if you're in the NBA
I,
East?
oh, for sure I do. Cleveland has all the pieces, and for me, I think right now he is the bridesmaid, and that's Donovan Mitchell's team, and he's okay. He's at this point in his career, I think he's okay being the bridesmaid, and when the guys get and he can still take some of that pressure off him, and I think at the end of games and when Mitchell's out now, they have a guys that can get buckets, and you have Schroeder, and then you have guys that can lock down now. And if they get beat, they got guys on the back end that can protect the goal. So I think with Cleveland's in the mix, I think Detroit is it's going to be scary with Detroit. But all of it. And if Tatum comes back, shit, yeah, you're gonna have a double wedding in Boston, man. Because right now, Jaylen Brown is playing out of his mind.
And Tatum, I think this is maybe one of the first times that you're going to see a guy tear his Achilles and come back so quickly. I mean, if Tatum comes back and he's looking good, I don't know if you've seen any videos of him rehabbing and practicing.
Well, he's
He
playing a
looks
lot of golf. He's playing a lot of golf, so I think he's all right.
I guess so. I guess maybe that's the secret. The secret might be golf after all, Greg. But wow. Yeah, definitely will be very interesting to see if he returns and how far the Celtics could possibly go. So I know, this is what the Knicks fans have been waiting for. If you're a Knicks fan on a scale of 1 to 10, how afraid of you right now of these other teams? Do you think that the Knicks stand a shot at somehow making it to the finals?
Now, you know what? That's a good question. I think with Cat, I think the way he's playing now, I think the Knicks have a shot because he is actually playing like a big man instead of, you know, living out there in 3-point land. He's actually, getting rebounds and blocking shots and going to the bucket and, getting people in foul trouble. You know what I mean? He's too athletic. I mean, he's the number one pick in the draft for a reason, right? And he's actually leaving it on the court. And that's what New York fans are used to seeing. They're used to people playing hard, and he's actually playing hard now. So it's nice to see. You know what I mean? It's sort of nice to see that he's revived his game a little bit.
And I think we slightly talked about it last week. But do you take last year's New York Knicks over? Oh, because you weren't here last week. I talked to Nate about this. And this is the big question that I asked Nate, Greg. I asked him, I said, Nate, last year, it just seemed like the Knicks had, like the kids say, almost an aura about them. They just seemed to believe in themselves. They made it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in who knows how long. And it just seems like this year, and I like Mike Brown a lot, by the way. I feel like the coaching changes now that I look at them. I think it was a good thing. I think that they actually used their whole roster and it makes sense. But would you take last year's Knicks over this Knicks, or would you say that these Knicks have a higher ceiling?
I, I would say these Knicks have a higher ceiling because I think last year they didn't know what to expect. So last year was, the trial run. Now there's expectations. Now these guys have been there. Now they've tasted it. They know what they want. They know what they're trying to accomplish. I think last year, it was the approval. How far can we go? Not talking about winning it. Now they're talking about winning it. You know what I mean? They're talking about, we're making trades to put us over the top to win it. We're not just making trades to make trades. And I think this year's team is a little bit more polished than last year's team to me. I think going through what they went through last year is going to make them stronger. Does that mean they're going to be in Eastern Conference Finals? No, but I think they have a good shot to get back there. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean they're going to be there. I think they can hold their own with any of those teams we just mentioned from Cleveland, Boston, and Detroit. You know what I mean? I think they can hold their own. So it should be fun. Getting
I
to that
well,
time of year.
I don't know if this team could even beat the Celtics. I know that Tatum got hurt. I believe it was the very end of the series. So they did play, but I mean, if he hurt his Achilles like that, he probably wasn't playing at 100% as it is. I feel like now they have built a team around Jalen Brown, or at least they're used to playing around Jalen Brown. If I'm the Knicks, I'm in deep fear of the Celtics. I'm in deep fear of the Pistons, who want to give it back to them. They eliminated the Pistons. The Pistons are going to want to come back swinging at the New York Knicks, literally, quite literally, I'm sure. And like you said, like we were talking about the Cleveland Cavaliers, I'm sorry, Knicks fans. I know there's a lot of you listening, but I'm sure that Nate's listening, and he should be sad. He should take that Knicks hat and put it somewhere else.
Yeah,
I'm
I
worried
can't
about
wait
the
to
Knicks.
see. I can't wait for him to take that Knicks hat off. Then he's gonna have
Yeah,
his Mets hat on.
of course. Yeah, we'll be swapping it back and forth, throwing each one out. I don't know how the Mets. Honestly, I would say this. My hot take right here tonight or today is I believe that the Mets are going to go further than the Knicks. I think the Mets, and that's without any pitching. That's with a rookie ace. I believe the Mets are going to go further than the Knicks. I'm sorry, Knicks fans. I just don't see it. Karl Anthony Towns fans, I just don't see it. And I know, like you said, he's stepping up and he's playing tougher and stuff, but I feel like Michael Jordan did. Did you see that viral clip of Michael Jordan? where he saw Luka Doncic. And I know that they're both Jordan guys, literally, right? But he dapped up Luka and he looked so excited. And next to Luka is Karl Anthony Towns. And that look of disappointment in Michael Jordan's face. I felt so bad for Karl Anthony Towns and for all the Knicks fans out there. I think you just said it right there. But man, that was crazy. I'll send that to you on Instagram, Greg. But yeah, any closing thoughts? It's finally that time. Unfortunately, we do have to go, but keep listening to Fox Sports Rochester. There's a whole ton of national content. Greg, I don't know if you know this. We're the only show on Fox Sports Rochester that's not a nationally syndicated Fox show. But we're next. Mark my words. We're going to ride Fox Sports Rochester till the cows come home. What do we
Yeah,
miss,
yeah,
Greg?
we
Any
are.
last words?
No, hey man, hey, just hey, keep our servicemen in your prayers, and those innocent people that are in Iran that have nothing to do with this war that has started. We got to keep all people in our prayers and try to lift them up, and because like I said, there's gonna be some with war comes lost lives. So just keep people in your prayers, and hopefully we can get through this, and it'll make everyone stronger.
Prayers up to everybody, both here and in foreign nations. We want peace for everybody, men, women, children. It's all love and peace right here on What's Going On. Well said, Greg. Thanks for listening, everybody. Join us online at foxsportsradiowgo.com, and we'll be back next week right here on Fox Sports Rochester. Over and out, folks.
All right,
Peace.
peace.